Don't hate me. But I'm going to be strict with the pitchers, I'm going to be strict with the panel, and hopefully we will get everything done. So I'm going to start by introducing our panel of dragons. Here, to my left, is Kemi Seesink. She's the Global Policy and Advocacy Coordinator for the Global Water Initiative. And I'm going to ask Kemi, what was a time that you pitched or were pitched to that really stuck with you? And in the spirit of the event, please limit your answer to 2 minutes. Go.
Thank you. I'm going to share very quickly an example from when I was in Amsterdam earlier this year at the Sustainable Food Summit, in which one of the presenters started off by explaining why he'd had a nervous breakdown and how the product that he was introducing into the market had not only revolutionized the small village he was in, provided very clear evidence about that, but also finished off within the allocated time by telling me the return on investment and how it changed his life.
Great. Let's give her a round of applause. Next to Kemi, we have Kathy Watson of eCraft. She's the head of development, and I pitched to you the same question. What was a time when pitching changed your life, either from your perspective or receiving a pitch? 2 minutes.
Pitch, I have a lot of experiences when I talk to young people, and I've worked with a lot of young people, especially in Uganda, and I say, what do you work on? And they say adaptation. I say, adaptation about what? And they just keep on repeating the same word, or they say mitigation, or they say adolescent health, and they don't expand. So, you know, what I would say to everybody is just be vivid, be bright, really tell a story. Sometimes I pitch really well, sometimes it doesn't work, sometimes it's a long-term thing. I was at MasterCard Foundation really wanting money for youth, for agroforestry, because I think youth is the next huge tsunami. It's already with us. And they kept on looking at me and saying, well, what have youth got to do with trees? How do youth and trees fit together? And I found it really, really difficult. So I have to keep working on them. So sometimes you just have to be patient and keep trying.
Great, thank you very much. Let's give her a round of applause. Next, we have Stephen Lawry, who is the Director of Forest and Governance Research Portfolio at CIFOR. Stephen, same question.
Hey, thank you. I used to work for the Ford Foundation. I worked for the Ford Foundation for about 14 years. So I probably heard like 200 or 300 pitches. And one thing, I think one lesson from pitches is rarely is a decision taken on the spot because the proposal has to be evaluated and all of that. But I remember once very vividly, a grantee who we work with had a lot of confidence in. The director called me. She had an NGO in Palestine in the West Bank that did architectural conservation. Said, Steve, we've got a successional plan here. We have a plan for the new leadership. He just got an offer to go to university in Brussels to study conservation. But he needs $30,000 and we have to know tomorrow. And I said, yes, of course. And it obviously made her day, made his day, made his career. He's now heading the organization. But what was important here was that I knew the organization, I had confidence in the leadership, worked with them, the context was all set. It was more than intuition, although intuition was at work. Here's something we should support and not having to go through a lot of elaborate appraisal and assessment. So that's my happiest experience, if you will.
Great, thank you. So trust is important. Next, we have Tint Lwin, who's the Executive Director of RECOFTC, which is the Center for People and Forests. Same question.
Thank you. Of course, I'm working for the organization called the Center for People and Forests, mainly to promote the participation in the local communities in the forest management. You know, I just want to share one of the experience is we have many, many beautiful global policies written very beautifully. But the implementation of those policies on the ground without having the participation of local communities is really, really challenging. So I want to make sure that, you know, when you talk about all these 5 areas, definitely you need to have a participation of the local communities very, very actively. So I just want to share this, how challenging we are in making this happen. Thank you.
Great, thank you. And finally, we have Giraud. Is that correct?
Good.
Oh, great, wonderful. I did so well. So the same question. Bernard is from, he's the Senior Sustainability Advisor to Danone yogurt. and co-founder of the Livelihood Fund. So, Bernard, what is an experience with pitching that stuck with you?
Well, I remember quite many years ago, I would say, when I joined Danone. At the time, I was responsible for what was called at the time social responsibility. And I remember after a few months in the company, I had to pitch the executive committee of the group. Danone is quite a large company, 30 billion euro sales per year. So I was in front of this nice group of executives of the company, and I had to present a strategy for sustainability. Well, at the time we called it social responsibility. So I was very excited. I brought what I considered as great ideas, great proposal, but it was a total failure. My colleagues at the executive committee were quite puzzled with what I proposed. And then I realized that when you propose something, you have to understand first the culture of people who are listening to you, how what you propose has to fit in what they can really implement. Otherwise, you invest a lot of time and energy, sometimes intelligence, for little results.
Good. Thank you very much. Let's thank all of our dragons. Okay, so we have 5 dragons up here at the front of the room, but we actually have a room full of dragons, and we'd really love to hear from you. So if you came in and sat down, you probably found a little envelope with cards in them. So can you please take those out right now? These cards, there are 5 colors, and each of them coincides with one of the challenges. Violet, measuring success. Green, landscape restoration. Blue, education. Yellow, finance. And orange, rights and tenure. And I will remind you guys about that again. But what we would like you to do is after the pitch is made, while the dragons are giving their feedback, you can jot down any suggestions, comments, recommendations that you have. And at the break in the middle of the session, and then again at the end of the session, runners will come around and collect your cards. And we will use those to give feedback to the pitch groups. So we really want to hear from you guys. In addition, if you can write down your email at the bottom, we'll let you know what happens with the youth initiative. And add you to our mailing list. Great. So we're going to start. Enter the dragon's den. We're going to have measuring success come up first. So these groups of 10, there are going to be 3 people pitching for this group, Karen, Paula, and Anne. But there were 10 people working on this, and the team is going to be here supporting them. So when you ask questions or get feedback, they can also call on their team members. What will happen is there'll be 3 minutes for pitching, 6 minutes for a dragon response, and then 1 minute for the pitchers to respond. So, measuring success.
All right, thank you. So good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Good afternoon, dragons. Before we start, I would like to ask all of you, well, beside the 50 youth, a question. Has any one of you here heard the game Aqua Republica? Not you guys. Okay, so not many. Well, it's not really surprising. Well, this game, the Tint developers approached Global Landscape Forum from last month to have their problem solved. So it's not really that popular now, but I have to say it is a very, very meaningful game. It especially helped on the education of water management. So it put yourself in the shoes of decision maker. So all of your decision is gonna affect the regional landscape and water resources. So it's a very, very worth playing educational game. However, the developing team and all other project runners has faced severe problems that there's a lacking of clear standards or indicators to measure the impact of these educational tools, also their progress on achieving SDG, Sustainable Development Goals. So here we are to provide you a solution. and we hope to establish the partnership with you to make this idea come true.
Like I love to say, the future is here. And the future being here comes with its own challenges. One of the challenges that it's come with is, one of the opportunities first, let me talk about the opportunity. One of the opportunities come with is digital learning. But digital learning also comes with its own challenges. And the challenge that is here is, how do we measure the success or the impact of digital learning? And so, like my colleague earlier said, UNEP approached us with the model of Aqua Republica to see if we could come up with a solution on how to measure the success or the impact of digital learning. And my team and I, we've come up with this innovative idea that is transparent and provides information in real time. It provides data to you as the investors or the potential investors, and to the public, that means it's open and transparent, and to all stakeholders.
But I think the main question this afternoon is why? Why would you even care? Why would the United Nations, the Global Water Initiative care about this platform? Well, we have 3 answers for you. We are open, we are transparent, and we are community-driven. We're open and transparent because we recognize the importance of scientific-based and community-driven data gathering analysis. And this kinds of analysis, we will link this to the platform so that as a community of practitioners and users, we will be able to make this platform a reality. And so this afternoon, on behalf of my team members and on behalf of these amazing young people, we would like to invite you to partner with us financially and to work with us collaboratively on developing these indicators. For us as a community to be able to provide that we are indeed contributing to sustainable development success.
Thank you so much, Measuring Success. Excellent work. This team was mentored by UNEP. Each group had a partner on their challenge, and this group was partnering with UNEP. So now I will hand it over to the dragons. 6 minutes for response. Let's start with Kemi.
Thank you. My really quick responses, I'll start off with the positives. Really good audience engagement. You didn't just rattle off acronyms without clarifying what they were. You gave credit to the team. That's fantastic, even though you're the ones standing up here. You emphasized open, transparent, and community-driven. So here are my questions back to you. I still don't know. Does this already exist? Are you introducing this into a saturated market, or is this the first of its kind? So I understand what, how, and why. I don't yet know why you.
Okay, good. I also like the presentation, but don't tell me it's an innovative idea. Show me that it's an innovative idea. And I liked it when you said 1, 2, 3. I think it was you who had the little list. It's really good to have a quick list, good to have an odd number rather than 4, do 3. But I also wanted to know, how is it different from what's already out there?
No, I think the engagement, the excitement for the idea was really quite compelling. But I came away feeling that I didn't really have a rounded understanding of just how it would work. I know about app-based platforms for collecting data. I don't know so much about app-based platforms for analyzing data at the community level. The analysis is something you seem to be adding here, so that's very, very important. So I wanted to know a little bit more about how it would work sort of technically and operationally.
So Mr. Stephen mentioned about the also the little bit concern about the how this community level participation, how they can be actively participate in this kind of the measuring the your success, because sometimes you use a sort of like a digital learning is maybe not very affordable or not reachable to the some of the grassroots level. This is I think you got to think about it. Thank you.
Thank you. I think it's a great idea and initiative. I would join my neighbor in saying that what is important in measuring impact is how the people in the field can use what you measure to improve what they do. So I would like to know how you will test, implement. They are very good concepts, but concepts usually work. What is a little bit more difficult is practice. So how you would like to initiate, test, and then replicate if it works.
Okay, so that's the response from our dragons. Some questions about implementing and the concrete ways that this would work. The team will now have a minute to respond, but I want to remind you that this is the purple card. So if you have any notes for the team, please write them on the purple card. All right, 1 minute, start.
So there is an SDG website of partnership of different initiatives, but what is lacking is the tracking of the success of those initiatives. And this is important for 3 reasons. One, organizations need to know that they are actually working towards achieving the SDGs. Second, this provides an opportunity for people who are wanting to finance these projects to be able to identify successful projects to reduce the risk of investment. And third, if there is a successful project, we want to be able to share that. So we want to share Aqua Republica with other relevant youth networks who could use it. Would anyone else like to add?
And like in terms of utilizing the community level data, so these kinds of digital tools, some of the institutions already have this, and so that's the reason why we wanted some sort of collaboration and partnership, because we want to utilize these existing institutions, connect them with the community level, so that as a community of practitioners and users, you can provide at the community level.
Sorry, your time is up.
Okay.
All right, everybody, let's give these guys a huge round of applause. Oh, thank you, Measuring Success. All right, so now can I have the Landscape Restoration Group come up? Yeah. Give these guys a round of applause, too. The Land Restoration Group partnered with my organization, the CGIAR Research Program on Water, Land, and Ecosystems, and they have the green card, everybody. Wave them. Wave them in the air. Let me see your green cards. Woo! All right, great. And from this group, we will have Estefania, Nor, and Dan presenting.
Hi, hello. Good afternoon. We are the Youth in Landscape Restoration team, and you are the board members Nile Basin Initiative. Great, right? Okay, first of all, I would like you to imagine that you are in Ethiopia, right? And keep the following message in your mind and think about that. Ethiopia is suffering a lot of degradation, and the people too, not only in the highlands, but also downstream. Imagine 242 million of people living that situation is terrible.
It's clear that there's a huge need for landscape restoration in this area. Luckily, Ethiopia has pledged 15 million of restored hectares through the Bond Challenge. But in order for this restoration to be performed cost-effectively and with adaptive management, there is a need for data for all the organizations that are working on the ground. We have developed and we present today Land, a people-centered toolkit for landscape restoration. It is cost-effective, it's cheap, and it helps people and landscapes to unlock their potential.
Through Land, we hope to achieve 3 things: enriching landscape restoration efforts, to bring local communities into the data collection dialogue, and to bridge the gap between people and landscape restoration efforts. Here's what we're asking for you today. We're hoping for you to be our funding partner and to use our toolkit as part of your projects. I'm from Sudan, right at the intersection of the Nile River, at the Blue and White Nile Rivers, in Khartoum to be specific. Soil degradation has had a massive effect, not just on agriculture, but on everyone who is living not just in Sudan, but downstream as well. So, this is why we believe you should be using our toolkit. It's a cost-efficient way to get real-time data from the ground itself and to build effective, sustainable, long-term strategies and policies and solutions. At the end of the day, here's what you need to know. People are at the center of this toolkit, and through Land, people will have the power to affect change within their communities. Thank you for taking the time to listen.
Right. Good job, guys. You even had a few extra seconds. Okay, so now we will have 6 minutes of response from the dragons. Who'd like to start? Stephen?
Well, it's such a hugely important set of problems you're working on. Soil runoff, land degradation in the Blue Nile, upland region in Ethiopia. But, so what I gleaned from the presentation is, once again, it's another app or way for collecting data, okay? But then you mentioned at the end something very, very important, was giving people the power to do something about land degradation. And I don't see that connection. There has to be a connection between, if you will, evidence. We talk a lot about this, evidence to outcomes, evidence to policy, evidence to strategy. And so I think the missing element here is how is this actually going to empower people to influence the outcomes, that is, get control of their environment, get more trees in the ground, and so on and so forth. So,
I'll go ahead. Really nice delivery. You all spoke slowly and really clearly. Things like real-time data, people-centered toolkit, they sound really good, but if you hear them a lot, they become kind of monotonous. What I would like to know is that you've actually trialed this with people gave their feedback to you, and that maybe it would be some kind of iterative process so that you learn as you go and it improves over the time that you use it. Those are some good qualities for any developmental intervention.
Okay, I just want to say the landscape restoration is not a really technically difficult approach, but in practically it's a very difficult. It's to bring the many stakeholders together, especially when you talk about the landscape. You need to talk many people from different sectors. That's been the biggest challenge we are having in the ground. So I want to make sure that you apply this tool to the many people in the ground as much as possible, especially the bringing the many disciplinary together. This is the biggest challenge, and hopefully that if you can do this as a piloting, testing, and also scaling up, it can be the a proper step to go.
I found your presentation of the reason why and the objectives very clear. So it was very well structured. I think what is missing is when you say people are at the center of our toolkit, this is a very interesting input. I would like to know how it works. So you make it effective, because, I can see it in many projects. Data's collection is sometimes very impressive. Data used by people is much more difficult. So I would like to know how you reconnect that. You explained very well what you want to achieve, but the how is not that clear. Thank you.
I agree with my colleagues that already said the ask is very clear. It was very good of you to set the scene. I like it when people are bold enough to set the scene, which you did. You framed it and you let me know who I am as an investor. With that hat on, speaking with my NBI hat on, I don't know what makes this cheap. I kept on counting the number of times I heard the word cheap and cost effective. But my feedback is you didn't ask for money. You asked for us to integrate this into the framework of projects we already have on board. That is very interesting. And hearing a little bit more about how you thought that through. The link with my policy hat on, this being the International Year of Soils, I was very interested to hear where you were going with the soil component of this. I think that's something that could make this very engaging, and to see how with the soil moisture, soil management, you could build that out. So that's my feedback.
So you think that they would invest in this solution?
My understanding is that it's a budget neutral ask. You're asking me to consider integrating this into existing framework. So that's interesting. That's worth considering.
Great. We will now have a minute response from the pitchers.
Thanks for your very good questions. And the big takeaway for us is that you're actually interested in. So you want to know more about it, which is great for us. A few quick responses. It's not an app, it's a toolkit. So it's an offline toolkit with an online component just for the data. So the offline thing is also where we connect with the people, with the communities, with the stakeholders, and where we also feed back the results directly into the communities that we are working with this toolkit. Coming to the soil part, which is like everything of the data, what we're going to do is we're going to measure things on a 1 to 5 scale so that people can actually understand what they are measuring, how they measure it, and see results in a short time frame. So you can already see, okay, this year was a bit better than last year. We use photos, we use... So this is a bit of the way more how it works. Coming to the budget, it costs only 100,000 to develop, and then it's budget neutral.
Great. All right, let's give the land restoration team a huge round of applause. Thank you guys, that was great. Now can I please have the education team come up? The education team partnered with Wageningen University. I'm sorry, I'm so terrible at this. Dutch names. Wageningen University. There it is. And we will have Joseph, Janelle, and Deanne present for this group. Microphone. Do you guys have a mic? No. Okay. Your 3 minutes starts now.
Good afternoon. My name is Joseph, and I'm a local farmer from Kenya. I would like to do climate smart agriculture by growing crops alongside planting of trees. But I only have indigenous knowledge on agriculture, and I don't know anything about agroforestry.
Good afternoon. I am Janelle, a policy analyst from Jamaica. Despite my expertise in climate change, I have little or no information as to how farmers cope with this reality.
Hi, I'm Diane. I'm working on landscape issue, and you're probably wondering right now, how can we deal with this kind of situation and try to fill up the gap existing between what is being taught and what is being required on the field to be able to think landscape? Well, imagine if there was a unique and inclusive space, like a landscape academy, that gathers, connects, filters information and knowledge from different organizations like yours and make it accessible online for anyone who wants to be a landscape professional. For this landscape academy, our team developed this idea of an online self-assessment tool that enabled people to assess their landscape-related competencies, including soft skills such as multicultural understanding, as well as technical skills like agricultural knowledge, for them to identify what are their gaps and needs in order to be able to think landscape. Based on this assessment result, a customized curriculum will be generated automatically, adapted to your geographical and cultural realities for you to become an efficient landscape professional. Because no matter your age or your background, everyone should have this opportunity to be able to teach and learn on landscape, right?
Exactly. I believe, as a farmer, that it's through sharing our best practices and collaboration that we will be thinking landscape, and that the Landscape Academy will bring a platform where we can all share our ideas.
How then can you contribute to this idea? Today, we invite you as the heads of your individual organizations to partner with us. Firstly, your modules, knowledge, and expertise would be useful for this online curriculum, and your financial support would likewise be necessary to take this idea further. But how then will you benefit? What's in it for you? Firstly, there's the opportunity to network with other landscape institutions. Secondly, the visibility that this academy will provide will allow for you to reach a wide target audience. And most importantly, not only will you be contributing information, but you'll be able to access diverse yet relevant data to complement your ongoing work. We urge you to make use of this opportunity. The landscape train is moving. Get on board.
Yeah. Thank you, education group. That was passionate. All right. Well then. Can't wait to hear from our dragons. Are you guys ready? Who would like to go first?
I'll go first. You had me, actually. I feel slightly beaten over the head, but you've got me. And one of the reasons I really like it is I like the way you recognize that people's experiences and environments are deeply diverse, and everybody has to have their own one. I think it's going to be a little complicated to do it, given how diverse the world is, but it was a pretty compelling presentation, and I'm quite impressed. It's good, and I like think landscape, because that's actually a new concept for people. People are pretty siloed in their heads, so well done.
Well, I think it's a really great idea and a great project. And I happen to know CIFOR, we work very closely with Wageningen, and they do a landscapes governance course every year at Bogor. And but this is just a natural because it's it really reaches out to indigenous knowledge. It provides a means for online to bring that knowledge into the Wageningen to distill, synthesize, but always recognize every landscape is different. Every community, every context is different. And so you've got this great chance for people living and working in landscapes to share their knowledge and their experience, and then for others to aggregate that knowledge and experience and draw some general conclusions. But what's really, really cool about it is that it's participatory, it's really about serving people, and it's fabulous. So I think it's a very good proposal.
Well, first, very good sales exercise. Huh? Maybe you're competing to join a company like Danone, I don't know, but you're pretty good to sell something, so congratulations. You have the energy and you found the right words to convince us. So very good. My question would be more about how we connect what we could call a kind of e-learning or e-transfer of knowledge with real transfer of knowledge. How we can learn from what I can observe in the field is we learn in companies, but also in the landscape, is we learn from others quite practically. So how can we connect this kind of e-learning with the, I would say, in the field learnings? Would be interesting to mix the two and not separate the two. So I think it's an opportunity to develop your thinking about it. Thank you.
Good, what excellent this thing. I understand that you got a mentor from the Wageningen University. I think it's a great university. Wageningen University and RECO has been partner for many, many years. So no wonder that this team comes up with an excellent presentation, I really like the idea of linking the practical things on the ground with the curriculum development in the university. It's really important. And nowadays, many academic programs are really important to link with the practical world we are living. Especially, when you talk about the landscape approach and landscape academy, you need to make sure that, your curriculum development, your curriculum programs, is it mainly for the learning opportunity or also for the earning opportunity? Because many students choose the program because they expect that they will get a good job and they can make earning from this kind of the learning. This is really important. Because one of the examples I would like to share, it is a really funny experience, but it's real.
I'm sorry, actually, I have to cut you off. We're out of time. If you limit your remarks to 1 minute, that's fine.
I will be very fast. I think I'm the only person who wants to get off the train. The intercity is speeding really fast, and there are some exciting components, but I'd like it to become a stop train instead. I'm sure your partners at Wageningen University will tell you what a stop train is. It's one in which it stops at the stations and it considers who it's picking up and getting off. So my questions are, where are the extension services in this? Where's the farmer-to-farmer twinning here? Why aren't you talking to your neighboring farmer? Where are the agricultural universities? And my final comment is, I'm hearing a lot of excitement. I'm hearing a lot about effectiveness. I'm not hearing a lot about efficiency. Customization is not efficient. I'd like you to go back and do what the previous group did, present the numbers. Thank you.
Hey, so really positive right until the end there. Let's let the education group respond for 1 minute. Go.
The concept behind e-learning is there will be like we say online platforms. So the all the stakeholders who have working on several like research, academics, and extension purpose, their modules and their those book and printable materials will be available online. That is one concept. Also, like we also carry to conduct webinars, Google Hangout, those kind of online sessions, so that the professional and the young people, they can collaborate at the same times. That is the one thing. And addressing the another question, like this is not only for learning opportunity, but also for earning. Because if you come together, then there is a job, there is a chance for job for other peoples.
Maybe to try to start answering your question. So I think I agree with you that it's not because it's customized that it's going to be efficient, but I think it's part of the thinking that we should have forward in terms of, for example, how to make some specific case studies and how to assess. Sorry, but we can discuss.
Okay. All right, round of applause for this group again. Thank you so much, you guys. That was great. We're about to take a 5-minute interlude. It's not really a break. Before that starts, I just want to remind you again, this is measuring success, this is landscape restoration, and this one is education. Please jot your notes down, and after this 5 minutes, we will have runners come around and collect your cards. Also, remember to include your email. So everybody stand up. Let's get up. Yeah, okay. I was promised music. Let's see if there's music. Oh. Okay, well, there might not be any music, but everyone stretch. Oh. Okay, now turn to your neighbor, whoever they are, and in one word, describe how you feel about this pitch, this whole program. What is the one word you would use to describe it? Go. Oh, did I not hit it? I didn't see any music icon.
No, I don't know how to.
It's okay. No problem.
The music is
Okay, that sounds like more than one word. Everybody, sit back down. Thank you so much for your participation. We want to make an announcement for this Youth Innovation, Young Innovators Initiative. We had over 150 applicants, and each applicant had to submit a video. And then the videos went online, and we had almost 3,000 people vote on which video they thought was the best one, and I am about to announce the winner. So everyone, if you can hit your knees and drum roll. The winner is Tamanda Chafuta. Can you please come up here? There she is. Okay. Tamanda is from Malawi, and she is a communications specialist for agriculture. And what she's won is leadership coaching with Pamela Yeke from the African Women in Agriculture Research Development Award, which is a fellowship and career development program for women in agricultural sciences in Africa. So one more round of applause.
for those wondering why I'm raising up the Malawi flag, this is Malawi flag. But this is for all those who voted. I had friends from all over the world, not just from Malawi, but from all over the world, all the networks that I have. So this is to them for voting. This is to Malawi for believing in me. And this is to my employers who are so kind enough to make me available to attend this forum. So thank you so much.
Round of applause. Congratulations. All right, great. Thank you so much. Okay, so should we start? Okay. Yeah? Okay, we're going to do the last two pitches. The next group is finance. Yellow card. Oh, wait, sorry. Before we do that, if you have written things down on the first three cards, pass them to the people who are coming around with boxes, and they will collect them, and we will collect those at the end of the session. Another thing I wanted to say is that I feel really bad cutting people off, but this is not the end. This is not it. After the session, we will have the youth innovators at the front of the room, and the dragons will also stay. So if you would like to give any suggestions in person, please come up and talk to the youth innovators. If you'd like to speak with the dragons, they will also be with the youth innovators giving advice. Yeah, so that's it. Great. Finance, yellow. For this group, we have Alpha and Jesse presenting. Oh, and your 3 minutes starts now.
Good afternoon, everyone. Here in Paris and across the world, global food security is recognized as one of the preeminent challenges of our day. Smallholder farmers produce over 70% of the world's food. We all eat, and so we all have a stake in the personal well-being and economic success of smallholder farmers of the world. The skills and knowledge that smallholder farmers possess are amongst humankind's greatest resources. But every day across the world, smallholder farmers face immense challenges in trying to improve their livelihoods, gain access to markets, become more resilient to climate change, and restore the environment that we all depend upon. This afternoon offers a very unique opportunity for the voices of farmers to be heard. We today are smallholder farmers, and we live and breathe these challenges.
I'm a smallholder farmer in Kenya, running my own dairy farm. And through my own experience and through my own capacity in terms of financial support, I was able to travel from Kenya to Norway. Why did I travel? To go and learn from a dairy farm. Therefore, I was able to learn two things. One, better techniques. What do I mean by better techniques? I mean better feeding mechanisms and better breeding mechanisms. Why and what did this translate to my own dairy farm? One, when I learned about better feeding mechanisms, I was able to increase my production from 10 liters per cow to 15 liters per cow. That, when you put in terms of numerical terms, you'll be able to see that I was able to recoup back my investment to travel to Norway in a month's time. Therefore, this did not only impact me, but it also impacted my community on the ground. I was able to mobilize them and to teach them what I learned in Norway. Second of all, when I talk about organizing farmers, is that I was able to bring them together, and this increased their access to market, their competitive access to the market, and second of all, they were able to increase their production. This had a very big impact in a company like Brookside in Kenya, which got more access to inputs and to their raw materials. Therefore, imagine, if more farmers like me were able to access such a program, how would this be? Would it be very awesome?
Alpha had the fortune to be able to fund and organize his own exchange. Most smallholder farmers are not so lucky. Mr. Giraud, we are very happy that Livelihoods and your partner investments have put together a 120 million euro fund to invest in the livelihoods of smallholder farmers. We are asking that you commit a portion of that fund to an exchange program for these smallholder farmers to be able to directly learn from each other. We believe that this investment and this exchange program will increase the livelihoods of farmers and address the missions of livelihoods in general. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Live Finance team. Sorry, I forgot to mention, this group is partnered with the Livelihood Venture. Great. All right, so let's hear from the dragons. Who would like to go? Mr. Giraud?
Your case reminds me something. Well, it's a very interesting approach, but I would say the question was more about the relationship between smallholders and companies. So how can you build trust between companies and smallholders, and vice versa? So I think exchanges and going abroad to see large or efficient dairy farms is great. But don't you think that you should also explore how companies can engage in how they can support small cooperative, engage in committing to collect the whole milk in the area, how they commit to pay cash at the right time for the farmers. And in exchange, how can they get some loyalty from the farmers in a kind of bilateral relationship? So it's about very concrete things that will really improve the relationship of trust and creating value between farmers and companies.
I've had some experience with exchange programs, having worked in a university in the United States, in a dairy state, it turns out, Wisconsin. And exchanges had a role, but they're very, very expensive, and they tend to be focused on the higher level farmer from Kenya, like our gentleman here, and the more sophisticated farmer, well-resourced farmer, kind of maybe on the verge of going into a commercial full-time production, relying principally on milk production for their livelihood. But there are a vast number, of course, of smallholder farmers who, with inputs and support, technical support on breeding and feeding, can realize some real improvements in productivity, which is what I think you want to aim for. But it needs to be done in the local context. There are costs associated with this. There are credit issues arising. And I think the point about the linkage and the partnership with companies, with the sources of demand in the supply chain, is probably a more efficient and more broadly impactful approach than bringing the individual farmer to Norway.
When I was in Uganda, I ran youth organizations, and often our young people used to have opportunities to go abroad. And when they came back, they'd often be like, one person went to Denmark for 3-month radio training, and when he came back, he kept on talking about how they'd made him eat cold food all the time in Denmark, like for lunch. So sometimes I think going abroad can be very distracting, and you don't manage to concentrate on what you have to concentrate on just because it's all a bit weird. So I think probably maybe do local exchange visits would probably be a better investment.
I'd agree with previous speakers, so I won't say much. I will say I really liked the presentation. It would have been interesting to have a gender component, because your data around smallholder farmers comprising 70%, to dig into a bit more about female smallholder farmers. What I do think, though, is that it would be interesting to hear some more about the innovation in the finance mechanism around this. Are there elements related to microinsurance or disaster resilience that you could tease out? I'd like to hear more, because I think you presented the issues in a very interesting way. I'd just like to hear a bit more. Thank you.
Yeah, I guess to start off, just through working with our group and discussing with Alpha and myself, we just know as farmers, we do not learn nearly as much as any opportunity other than directly working with other farmers. And so the exchange program, I guess we weren't very clear, is that it doesn't necessarily need to be an international exchange. Local and regional exchanges absolutely would be a very good idea, we believe. And we think that it's not necessarily about finding farmers that are about to go commercial or anything. It's finding farmers that can go and learn from farmers who do have best management practices. They can then come back to their own community, and that's where once they come back to their community, as Alpha's been able to do, and once you can connect with your other local farmers, that's when that knowledge sharing is then able to come together, and then they can create and share resources, which is when these cooperatives begin. And it's the organic formation of the cooperatives that we think is very important, that the farmers are the ones who are beginning the cooperatives, and sometimes they don't have that opportunity unless they're able to go and learn from another farm who has already started that. And so once they return to their community, they can come together, start the cooperatives, and increase their access to the markets and be able to work better with the companies.
Right. Great response. Well done. All right, let's thank the finance team. Thank you, everyone. All right, and the final group is land tenure, or rights in tenure. And this challenge is supported by CIFOR. So if the rights in tenure group could come up, they will have Praia, Maureen, and Wen presenting on their behalf, I think. Ah, great. Can I take your mic? Yes, please. And this is the orange card. All right, so the 3 minutes starts now.
On this past Monday, on the very first day of COP negotiations, 3 countries have pledged an additional $5 billion to support the implementation of REDD+ on the ground. However, national governments don't have a mechanism for reporting on their adherence to social safeguards as defined in Cancun in order to ensure that REDD+ implementation doesn't adversely harm local livelihoods or local rights. Crucially, the receipt of these REDD+ payments depends on country governments reporting on their progress in adhering to these social safeguards. Thus, we propose to national governments an integrated mapping mechanism through which they can report both locally derived, locally defined indicators for measuring social safeguards, as well as national progress towards achieving these safeguards.
As a result, this means our solutions will be inclusive, transparent, and cost-effective. Let me tell you about how this comes to be. So number one, when we talk about inclusiveness, this happens because we are allowing local communities to define their own indicators. And this can be done through already existing social networks, such as women groups or indigenous groups. And therefore, as a result, this makes our strategy locally flexible, and at the same time, it's still comparable at national level, something very desirable. Secondly, we are transparent in the sense that, this setup actually allows verifications of information coming from top down. How? Well, national government can actually verify this information from top down through our interactive map, and at the same time, the locals themselves can also have this very same access and looking at this very same information from the bottom-up approach. And even then, we also have a backup system, which is the more overarching monitoring system that allow civil society organizations such as RECOF and also research institutions such as CIFOR to also observe the data collections accessible to all. Another last point would be the last point would be the cost effectiveness. How does this come to be? Well, because we're using the existing national data and actually use this information such as on land rights and tenure and map this very information on the existing online platform. And then that's how we are fixing these problems of information gap. Problem solved.
As a youth, we asked to national governments to consider these mechanisms because we strongly believe that it's an effective safeguard information system which promote local rights and rural livelihoods.
Right on the nose, well done. Okay, so dragons, now you have response. Tint, would you like to go? They mentioned RECOFT.
Well, this is, I think, in concept, very persuasive and compelling, because one of the challenges, of course, in delivering on the social safeguard commitments is the whole question of local level engagement, participation, and of course, collecting and analyzing data locally and then feeding it up, as you say, into the national system for reporting and policy purposes at the national level. I think one thing I'm kind of hungry for here as a tenure person is some more thinking with respect to the underlying assumption, presumably, that people have rights. And of course, this is a huge issue in the REDD+ area. Forest rights devolution is the greatest problem, the lack of devolution, because REDD+ really is built on this notion that governments will undertake major reforms that assign rights in a much more clear fashion to forest living, dwelling people depending on the forest. And that just hasn't happened. I'm just going to say that just hasn't happened. And so I like to see that. I would have liked to see that in the mix with respect to, because safeguards come after rights, in my view. In my view, people build security in their livelihoods and capacity to manage their forests by virtue of the rights that are awarded to them, and that's just not happening.
Tint, would you buy into this idea?
Yes, I would like to share a few things about recently RECOFTC organized a national level dialogues in Cambodia, Laos, and Vietnam. In those dialogues, there are 4 key factors identifying, if you want to address the equity issue when you implement the REP+. It's very important. Is the participatory way of the decision making. You need to encourage the people to participate in the decision making. And then another aspect is talking about the tenure. If you don't have a secure tenure, I don't think you can promote the equity as well. This is the biggest challenge for the time being. So you rightly said that developing the safeguard is not the big D, but implementing the safeguard, in the actual level is still a bit of a challenge. You need a lot of capacity to build for the many stakeholders. So that's a way we got to make sure that all the other people participate in this process. Thank you.
Starting with the positives, I did enjoy the presentation. I thought you worked together very well. I must confess, till the last 13 seconds, I kept on thinking, who are you and what do you want? I'm not sure you introduced yourselves as the youth asking national governments till the very end. So I just say, in terms of attention grabbing, you might want to bring that up a little bit earlier. Just 2 questions from my end. Capacity to respond. I'm always interested when there are issues around reporting and putting the burden on national entities to report upwards. Is this seamless? How are you doing this in helping them to respond or monitoring this without causing extra burden to them? The second is quality of data. What are your thoughts around that? The presentation sort of implies as though the data is not flawless or flawed. I'd just like to hear your thoughts about that. Thank you.
On my side, I very much like your presentation. Because I perceive it as a sincere will to connect what you call bottom-up, which is in fact people in the ground taking ownership. Usually measurement is done for the top, not for the bottom. So you start from the bottom, and you want to reconcile the two with a frame that can be used in a consolidated way at national level. So I think it's very ambitious and very interesting approach. And I hope you can go further in exploring this way. Thank you.
If you study sociology, you hear about mixed methods, qualitative and quantitative. And what I'm hearing from you, but also from a lot of the presentations today, are rather quantitative approaches. You want data. But very often the truth of the matter comes out in qualitative information. So I'd like to know how you'll be capturing those stories and analyzing them.
Concrete feedback from the dragons. Now the team has a minute to respond.
Right, in terms of the last question, in addressing both qualitative and quantitative data, I think what was presented by Priya in the last bit about integrating both existing national statistical data as well as our collection of local level data allows us to present both types of data in a mapping framework that is not only is it geographically explicit, but it also contains that qualitative data in different layers. So for instance, we have potentially a layer on land rights, a layer on tenure conflicts, that is to address each one of those 7 safeguards at a national level. And I mean, just to sell my point a bit more, because we have these different layers and it's visually explicit, it's easy for stakeholders who have provided input into the system to review how were their inputs represented, is it accurate, and is it, in order to verify how well we are representing their information. So.
Great. Thank you so much. Let's thank the Rights and Tenure group. And let's actually take a minute to give all of the groups a huge round of applause. It's really scary to be up here. And let's also thank our very scary but productive Dragon's Den. Thank you so much for taking your time. And I would also like to thank the challenge partners who worked to mentor these groups. It was a volunteer that their time, and they mentored these groups. Everyone please thank them. And the youth initiative, I'd like to say that this is like by young people, for young people. So there was a huge group of young innovators who came to mentor, to run this Dragon's Den. And they have been working so hard for the last 6 months, volunteering their time and meeting at like terrible hours of the day and night to try to organize this. So let's give those people a huge round of applause. If you guys could stand up, please stand up. Great. Thank you guys so much. I'd also like to thank the sponsors of the Youth Initiative, who are YPARD, IFSA, GIAR, and CIFOR. And then there's also the Masters of Science in Agriculture, Climate Change and Transitions, and they were all supporting this initiative. So thank you very much to them. And actually, we have some more time. So if you guys have any questions from the audience, we would like to take them now, either for the panel or for the groups. So if you have a question, please put your hand in the air. Or a card. No questions? Okay. If that's the case, oh, okay. Okay, the dragons want to speak.
I think, I was brought in because another dragon was not available, and I'm a second running dragon or whatever. But I know these questions were set for you, but I wonder why there's this vogue for e-learning, doing things by distance, data. I know data is really big. I know data is really interesting. There's a kind of a thing for data. But personally, I've lived for 30 years in Africa and worked for 30 years there, and I think we need people-rich solutions. And I think there is no, I put 120 kids through the National Forestry College in Uganda, and a lot of them are now working in the National Forestry Program. And all day long, they're answering people's questions. And everybody has their own question about what they should plant on their farm. And before that, I worked in HIV, and you couldn't give a straight answer. Everybody's sexual situation is a little bit different, like the boyfriend's not quite faithful, but kind of faithful, or, that kind of thing. So everything has to be customized, which was that issue that came up from the group that we got excited about. We got excited about all of you, though. So I just think you can't get away from face-to-face. And one thing we have in this world is we have a lot of people, and people need work. And I think people should be on the ground, boots on the ground. And I advise you all as young people to put your time in the field. Don't go straight into an office. Yeah, that's what I would really advise you.
Good advice. Kemi?
I was just wondering, with the way we framed the discussion, I would find it really interesting to look at the faces of some of the presenters when other people were presenting. I'm just curious to know if there's any feedback or just reflections from groups to the other groups. It was really fascinating sitting up here and watching you smile or, grin or in shock at some of the things you heard. I'd just be really keen to hear that, because I know what I think. I really did come here to find out what you think.
Hey, does anybody from the Youth Innovators Group want to respond? Yeah.
Hello, I'm Alessia Portaccio. I'm from Italy, and I'm of the Rights and Tenure Group. Actually, what I think is that we work on themes that normally I think that association governments work per year during years and months, or anyway long periods, and we had just 2.5 days, 3 days, 4 days. So what I saw actually among us, it was really a growing up, a progress during these days, and a lot of excitement. And so it was, I think, how can I say, really a growing up and a capacity building among us.
One more response over here. Was that me? Sorry.
This is actually a response to about why e-learning is becoming really important. So I work in the field in India, and in a rural area in Uttarakhand. I'm 400 kilometers from the nearest town, which is New Delhi. So for me, like if I work in the field and I get a lot of interaction with people in the field, but for me to get a slightly more theoretical understanding of things, I've moved from a city to the rural area. So for me, a lot of my understanding I derive from theoretical texts. So I think e-learning provides that platform to me. So I mean, I've been doing online courses throughout the last 1.5 years that I've been in the field. So I think there can be a bridge. Thank you.
Thank you.
Can I?
Okay, let's hear from Tint.
I just want to give a two message to the, especially the young generation of the forestry professional, landscape professional. One thing is just you need to be a very specialist. Don't be generalist, okay? Trying to be special in one area that you're focusing. This is really important. The second thing is don't seek the job, create the job. Trying to be a creator of the jobs, and that is really important for the future of our professionals.
Okay. Well, first, I'm very impressed with the energy. That it was really impressive. I would say, yes, maybe you need to be a specialist, probably. My neighbor is probably more an expert than I am in forestry. But you have also to be kind of bridge makers. The world now is not a world where silo can any longer exist. So be open to the different parts, the different stakeholders, understand who they are. For example, sometimes the prejudice that we have on from business to NGOs, from NGOs to government, from government to private sector, and so on. You have to keep this mindset of openness and mutual understanding, because this is the way we will build the future. So keep it in mind. Keep the energy and build upon the openness.
Stephen?
Yeah, I was struck also a little bit by the strong focus of being mindful that we're a room full of scientists, right? But the strong focus on data, really quantitative methods. And I was reminded of a blog I wrote a few years ago. It was called "When Too Much Rigor Leads to Rigor Mortis." And the basic idea was that, you know, that judgment, intuition, which are often born of experience, are really generate important insights that you then may want to test and evaluate with data. But this, I think, speaks to the openness question, because data and information comes in all different kinds of forms. It's just not quantitative. And our experience really enriches our understanding of the world and the context in which we're living. And so you're going to be getting that experience like crazy. That's really exciting. But I always like to come back to this quote by Einstein. Okay, he was a scientist, right? And he said there are some things that don't count that can be counted, and there are some things that count that can't be counted. Okay, so this is a kind of it's the non-quantitative experiential element, the moral, philosophical, and cultural dimensions of our lives, which are so important and exciting.
Thank you so much to the dragons for their words of wisdom. Everyone, round of applause. Okay, so right here at the end, I'm gonna run around and stick the microphone in people's faces one at a time, and you just give me that one word that you feel like really inspired you after this session. I'll do the whole audience, well, not the whole audience, but I'll run around. And then just a reminder that people will come up afterwards and you can talk to them as well. So.
Proud.
Okay.
It's my favorite game. Content.
Okay.
Very proud.
Inspired. Energized.
Empowerment.
Fun.
I'm gonna run all the way over here.
Motivated.
Great.
Interaction.
Experimental.
Engaging.
Okay, great. Thank you guys so much. At the very end here, we're going to have Michelle, who was part of the Youth Initiative group, to wrap up.
Thanks, everyone. Thank you all for coming today. I trust that you enjoyed the pitches, and thank you again to our Dragon's Den panel. My name's Michelle Kovacevic, and I've been leading the Youth in Landscapes program for the past 3 years. And I've been working with a fantastic team of volunteers and of youth organisations who I think deserve acknowledgement for the amount of incredible hard work they've put into this program. Those youth organisations are YPARD, the Young Professionals for Agriculture and Rural Development, IFSA, the International Forestry Students Association, and GIAR, the Global Agroecology Alliance. Together, these 3 organisations represent over 15,000 young people working in forestry, agriculture, and agroecology. And what we've really tried to do with this initiative this year is actually implement a landscapes approach by getting young people working on landscapes issues, collaborating, building consensus, doing all the things that you have to do when you are trying to integrate and build landscapes in the real world. So I hope they've learned something from that process and they can take that to their contexts and apply that there. And I would love for you to not stop the conversation here. We have an incredible amount of energy to continue with this program. Some of the youth teams may indeed develop solutions further from here, so please do come and speak to them after this and throw your support behind them, and let's see what we can do for next year. Thank you all for coming, and I hope to see you soon at the next event.
Great. That's it.
Can I just grab you?